Put it on your rabbit ears. And hopefully the smell won't be too bad. Second. Now, I actually have an introduction for the show, you'll forgive me. But my name's John Siuntres. I have a podcast. I'm based here in Chicago. It's called Word Balloon. I'm celebrating my 20th anniversary podcasting, which is... And Sven has been incredible to me and let me moderate these panels for going back like 10 years, which is ridiculous, but it always means a lot. And I'm an OG fan, man. I've been Jerry G. Bishop, Sven's father, because we know he was originally started. But let me introduce, folks, a man who outruns The Walking Dead. The only man who scares an island of penguins more than U.S. tariffs. The Baron of Berwyn. Ladies and gentlemen, Rich Coes, a.k.a. Svengoolie. I love on the website, you got people like, can I get a rubber chicken for you? Oh my God. No.
This closer, is that okay?
Yeah, by all means, sir.
There are constant requests, and we constantly get questionable requests. It's always like, my uncle is suffering from cancer, and the only thing that will make him happy is getting a rubber chicken. And the thing is, if it's for real, I feel very sad for the person, but a lot of the times, when we kind of push a little bit, it turns out to be, just like they go, I'm going to plant a sympathy and get a rubber chicken. Yeah. It's like, boy, what's wrong with you? I just, I don't know.
They didn't want to advertise the water label, so that is an unopened bottle, just so you know. There's nothing dosed in there. Nobody pours the water tonight, as far as you know.
And that happened to me.
Deadly Mantis tonight, right?
The Deadly Mantis, yes. Which I always really liked a lot. I like the fact that, he gets thawed out and spends the time up in the Arctic and then heads down, to have some different ethnic foods in various parts of the world. And of course, I've got to bring in the fact that William Hopper is in it, because, lately we've been inundated with things about Perry Mason. I'm waiting for the music, but it's a fun movie, and I'm always glad to show that. And at the very end of it, I believe, we've got a filler piece that you would appreciate with the great comics artist Alex Ross. And he actually came in a few years ago and drew a picture of Svengoolie being carried by Captain America.
Fantastic.
It's very cool. And Alex had to say hi to you, by the way.
Oh, that's lovely. That means a lot. Honestly, Dan Dougherty, who did one of the variant covers for your anthology books, he's like, oh yeah, Sven came by and he did video and stuff. And I know Art Franco, of course.
Sure, yeah.
Who also worked on your anthologies.
Yep.
No, I was talking to your producer, Jim, and you guys are collecting a lot of B-roll for the comic people that were involved with the anthology books.
Yeah, and that's one of the great things about coming to these conventions is we get to meet people who have connections to us, or sometimes just people that you really admire and whose work you admire. Today, we saw Patton Oswalt. He walks up to me and hugs me. And he knows the show and knows me, and we have attachment to other friends like Dana Gould. And this just overwhelms me. I can't believe that.
The first time I interviewed Rich on video, Joel Hodgson from Mystery Science Theater, right before we were taping, he's like, can I talk to Rich for a second? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I can't tell you, you're such a inspiration of what we do. And as I was just teasing with the audience, it's like Rich is from, the tinfoil on the rabbit ears era. And I can kind of get it in. It's all snowy, but I'll sit through it. It's okay. Now you're national, man, and it's great. And you've been national for 10 years, 15 years?
For 14 years. That's a lot of tinfoil.
And also, I am thrilled that they have expanded the show, and now it's not just 2 hours, but 2.5 hours. That's great.
Yeah, it was amazing that our bosses had the confidence in us to give us an extra half hour. And, we get to bring in longer movies at times, but we also have some of the classics that we have that are pretty short.
Sure.
And that's where we end up with bringing back some old footage for people to see. And a lot of times, footage from these conventions, because we have interviews and such that, help fill the time a little bit better. Our bosses, when they gave us this extra half hour, did not stop to realize that it's like doing an extra half hour show for 52 weeks of the year. So,
How many, my friend wanted me to ask you, how many new shows do you make a year?
it varies from year to year. It depends on what's available to us, because a lot of times there's movies we want that are under exclusive contract to other people. It's varied from anywhere from, maybe 12 to 16 or 17. And now there's extra footage in every single show. So we redo parts of them, and
Sure.
it's a lot of stuff. And it's just a lot of work, unfortunately, to redo more. I'd love to do more movies, but we never really get the chance. But we're trying. We're trying to get more stuff. I'm trying to get some of the classics that we have not run before, maybe from the 50s and the 60s. And also now we have the Sven Squad. Features, and it's just great to have them there. I really enjoy working with them, especially Nostalgia for Rock. And we used to do stuff on the radio together all the time, and we already had great sort of chemistry. But now, when we do that stuff, sometimes we don't even have a script. And he's so good at ad-libbing and picking up on what we do. It's such a pleasure. You see sometimes that he's making me laugh. I'm trying not to, but it's unavoidable.
Rich and Bill, they're all radio guys. Radio is 99% improv actually. So, they come from that tradition. No, I get it. I'm glad you're going to talk about William Hopper tonight on the show. And I'm always wondering, because again, watching you and Mr. Science Theater and some of these shows, not only the actors, but a lot of times the filmmakers and stuff. Like, was it Bert I. Gordon that did a lot of the shows?
Yes, Bert I. Gordon, whose initials were B.I.G., big, and almost, I'd say 80% of the movies that he did had somebody who was huge or some creature.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because I know Village of the Giants with Bo Bridges. And,
sure.
That's a later one, but even back to the 50s and everything.
Yes, it is.
So do you ever do segments where you look at the director and, go through the...
We have, yeah. And a lot of times some of the directors actually are not familiar to people, and we don't necessarily make a big deal out of them.
Sure.
But there are certain ones that are so significant to the genre, and especially going back to some of the 30s stuff, and then into the 50s drive-in type stuff.
Yeah.
They're names that you know, and people always want to know more about them.
The Cormans and stuff. Did you ever get to interview Corman?
I never did.
Oh, that's a shame.
That is a shame. My pal Joe Bob Briggs was lucky enough to have him at one of his big jamboree things, and presented him with his Lifetime Achievement Award.
Oh.
This past summer, he also presented me with a Lifetime Achievement Award, which I thought was great. The great thing is, he's the proponent of the drive-in. And the event actually happened at a drive-in in Las Vegas, a real drive-in, during the time when the daily temperature was about 104 degrees. And I'm showing up in my usual finery here, and at that time it was 102. But it was a lot of fun. We did an all-night Universal Studios Monster Marathon. I only made it to about 4:30 in the morning. But he allowed me to, I'm at an age where holding all night is just not a good thing. But he presented me with the Lifetime Achievement Award, and it's called the Hubby because it's on a hubcap, like offering you a drive-in thing. But it was great, and he's so much fun to work with. He and Darcy, and we have, more great chemistry, just like with Bill. And we always talk about doing some more stuff, so I hope we do get the chance.
That's great. And I love that there is this small network of OG, although you're the ultimate OG, but Joe Bob and Elvira and stuff, and it's great that they're out there. And I know that there is online, not really competition, but others doing the tradition. This is, you all know, this goes back to literally the early days of television, where one of the local, the weatherman or the sportscaster on Saturdays would put on Dracula things and, show a movie and stuff. And does everyone know Svengoolie's origin? Show of hands who does it? All right, not that many. We're happy to do it. There was a Svengoolie prior to you.
Yes, he was Jerry Bishop, a local radio and TV guy. I loved his morning radio show. He was very funny. He had very similar senses of humor. And he was the announcer on duty when they had live staff announcers at WFLD. And he just happened to be on duty on Friday nights when they were running horror movies. And instead of just doing the usual little, back to the movie type things, he started to do some things like those people leaving right there. Thanks for your stop.
All right, good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't let the door hit you. I'm sorry. But Jerry was doing those announcements, and he would start playing around, and he started doing jokes, and he started doing the sort of Dracula voice, and as he always called it, Dracula Yiddish voice. And it eventually evolved into doing, longer sound bits with sound effects and such, and then eventually was done on video. And I was just a fan of his. I always was a fan of his from radio, and then he was doing that. And I just started sending him jokes, because he was reading jokes people sent. So I started sending him, and he found out that I was a student at Northwestern at the time, studying radio and TV. And I started just sending him stuff that was a little more than just jokes, and he liked it. And he started making requests, like, there's a commercial right now for Howard Miller selling land in the desert. Can you write a bit about that, a parody? And it built to that, and I'd write him song parodies and such. And at the time, seriously, I never thought, this is going to lead to a job. I was just thrilled that the guy that I really respected and loved listening to liked me, and he would use my stuff on the air. And eventually, he brought me in to work with him at WFLD, and when that show was canceled, and replaced by the Ghoul, who lasted less than a year.
Cleveland guy.
Yeah, and who kind of screwed himself over, because in his very first show, he said, I'm replacing Svengoolie, who's a real no talent. Okay. And
we don't like that.
A lot of the local audience did not appreciate that either, but, whatever. But Jerry went to Radio WMAQ and brought me along. I was his producer, and I was 80% of the goofy people he talked to on the radio. So it was a lot of fun, it was great. We'd be driving in the mornings, and I'd be going through the newspaper, and he'd say, who's doing what? And I'd say, well, this is Dean Martin did this. And he'd say, okay, today you're going to be Dean Martin. Okay. And that was a lot of improv stuff, too. I would write some bits, but it was great fun. I had such a good time doing it. And eventually, he was leaving town to go to San Diego, where he had a great career in radio and TV. And when he was leaving, he said, what are you going to do? And I'd also been working with the famous Dick Orkin, who did Chicken Man and The Tooth Fairy and so many great commercials. And both of them were moving to the West Coast. Now that's a hell of a commute. So I didn't end up doing that. But Jerry said, what do you think you're going to do? And there was one summer where one of Jerry's friends in TV had said, would you mind bringing back Svengoolie and doing it like as a summer fill-in type thing? And Jerry said, well, I'm not sure if I'd like to. And he, said to me, you can do it. Which, how flattering is that? And we had some false starts on it, and nothing ever came of it. And so when he was asking me what I was going to do, I said, well, maybe I'll try to pitch a local station on a show, knowing full well how almost impossible that is. But I had to do something. And he said, I tell you what, if you want to try the Son of Svengoolie thing, which is what we're going to show it, he said, you have my blessing. Which, how generous was that? He never asked for anything from me on that. He just said, go ahead and do it. And I went to WFLD, same place where he had been on, and pitched it to their then program director, who said, "That's a great idea. We were thinking of starting something like that too, but let's make it a bake-off." And I had gone in there literally with scripts and ideas and everything. He said, "Yeah, we'll just have a bunch of people audition and see who wins." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay."
Good idea.
But it went through a lot of machinations. They almost hired some other friends of mine, Wayne Julin and Penny Lane, if any of you remember them. And eventually it came down to me. And I started in 1979, which is hence the reason that this past year was the 45th year anniversary of the King
Absolutely. Fantastic. Absolutely. And really, sketch radio comedy is what I grew up on as a kid. And I tell Rich all the time, because I used to do fun stuff at the score and would do comedy bits and stuff. Truly, this man was my inspiration, and among others and everything.
Not true.
But,
well, it was always such fun stuff to write.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the stuff that we wrote for TV as well worked, because I remember we did a Groundhog Day thing once, I think when I was doing the Co-Zone.
Okay.
And it was Takeoff on Dragnet, we called it like Hogman or something like that. Bob looking for the groundhog. And somebody went to visit some relatives in Milwaukee, came down and said, "You know, they ran that bit on a radio show in the morning." And I was like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, because it was literal enough that it worked without the visuals." So we contacted the radio station and never heard anything back from them.
Things were looser back then. In fact, I know for a lot of your parodies, anything was fair game. It was like that for me in the 90s.
Yeah.
And now everybody's litigious, and you got to watch what songs you can use for your parody, correct?
We pretty much do almost all public domain songs. We have to check what the copyright date was,
Sure,
if we're okay to do it. And otherwise, we do get a permission from some artists to do it. We got permission for the Go-Go song from Gina Shock.
Awesome.
Freddie Boom Boom Cannon, my hero.
I'll say it's Mark.
He gave us the rights to do Tallahassee Lassie.
Excellent.
And Abigail Beecher. And we did some great stuff with that. Jim Peterick let us do one of his songs.
Oh, that's great.
And
Talk was very young.
we're working on, can I say this? I guess I can. We're working on getting a song from George Thorogood.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We found out he's a big fan of the show, and when he was in Chicago last at the House of Blues, he invited us to come in and see the show, and it was so funny when we got to meet him backstage. All he would talk about is horror movies. And he said, when we go on the road, we bring recordings of your show to watch in case we can't get MeTV.
Now it's in public domain. You can use Singing in the Rain, and that's all the Brain movies.
Yeah.
If you haven't already on
We have various ideas for that. I think our STEM squad, our boss suggested something then that they may do with it, but
Okay.
we've got some ideas as well. And, it's nice that we're living long enough to have some of that stuff that people are familiar with.
Now, they don't have a microphone stand set up, but I do have an Oprah or a Phil Donahue microphone. And what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind lining up over here on the side, because I really do want to give people an opportunity to ask questions. So please get up. Again, Rich and I can go for the hour, but we really want to give you a chance. Because this is your opportunity to really, ask the man what you want. So
And if somebody wants to volunteer to be the person holding the mic there, to help.
Oh, there you go.
we'd
We're
be
gonna
much
jump in.
appreciated.
I'll help you with that. I can do that for you.
This gentleman says.
Excellent. All right, let me make sure this works.
Oh, it works.
There we go. Of course you may. You're the first man.
Yeah, that's your reward. You may ask the first question.
Thank you, Sven. Discovered you a number of years ago. Absolutely love you. Wanted to ask a little bit more about the squad and how those characters came.
Sure. Well, one of our bosses decided that it would be fun to make my life easier and bring in some other characters. And I was fine with that. I certainly wouldn't mind making my life easier. It hasn't made my life too much easier, but nonetheless, so we have a bunch of people. There are a lot of people who send in stuff, and it's exactly what you would think we'd get. Either they were trying to dress like me and be like me, or they were just so bizarre. We didn't understand some of it. And the whole thing is, we had to keep in mind that, yeah, you can do a good 1 minute bit, but can you do stuff every week? And more than one thing. And we went through a lot of stuff, and I kept kind of saying, we need to get people who have some professional, professional experience. And we ended up with Sarah Palmer, who plays Svengoolie. She's very talented. Her day job is actually working at the Universal Studios theme park in LA, where she plays all different characters and helps run shows and things. And she was perfect. She was so good. And some people, oh, she's trying to be Elvira. And no, she isn't. She's got her own character, and she's very funny. I'm so happy we have her. And then we have somebody who used to work. There was a kid show that was on our network, Green Screen Adventure.
Yes.
And Scott Greger is this guy's name. Very talented guy. He came in, and we loved his audition. He's supposed to be an imp. And, we made up the name for him, Ignatius Malvolio Frankenstein. And the initials are imp, just like Gordon Gordon used to be. And his character has developed real well. He's always insisting that I'm his uncle, which is not true. And as he's been going along, his character's been developing more and more. It's turned out great. And then, I mentioned him earlier, Bill Leff, who hosts the morning cartoons, and I told you all about working with him. He did the character Nostalgia Ferratu on the morning cartoon show. And it was very funny, and one of the bosses said, well, you should have him on your show. And I said, sure, that'd be great. We brought him on, worked perfectly, and now, we've got the three of them working together. They've really gelled as far as just playing off each other, and, getting to work with me, and I certainly can play off them real well. And they're doing real well. Now, this, of course, brought up the rumor that, please, we'll charge you for leaving. I gotta go have dinner, man. What was I talking about?
The rumor.
Oh, the rumor, thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're doing better than me.
Look at that, holding the microphone next to you. That started the rumor that, he's retiring. He's going to be
Right, sure.
And people have been posting that all the time. And I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not retiring yet. Certainly, I will retire someday. But right now, I've always said, as long as I'm having a good time, and I can still do the job, and I'm physically able, I'll keep doing it. And, having these three new characters in will make my life easier, certainly. And it's fun. I'm having a good time. And the show being at the greatest height it's ever been at, I kind of feel like, well, I don't want to just say, so long now. It's so much fun. We're having such a good time. So you'll be stuck with me for a while more.
The ups and downs that Rich has had in his career, that wilderness time post-Ozone and before the U brought him back and everything, and he was the weekend weather guy. Although, as you've always told me, Harry Volkin's wife said you were her favorite weatherman.
Yes.
Which is cool.
When I did the weather, the whole reason I got that job to begin with was because I was doing the co-zone at WFLD, and the guy who was in charge said, Brand Miller, who he is on Channel 5?
Sure.
He was the weatherman there, and it was only when they had one or two newscasts on the weekend. And they decided, well, we should bring in somebody else. And they got a guy when they expanded to all week, but they didn't have anybody for the weekend. And the guy who was in charge said, how about you doing the weather? And I said, question. I have an interest in weather, know a little bit about it, but I don't really have any credibility. And he said, you're a weatherman, you don't need credibility. And also because I was already working there, they knew that I wouldn't leave. So I became the weatherman. Learned as much as I could. And the guy who was the main weatherman at the time indoctrinated me into it by saying, okay, you get the maps here, you do the graphics on this, good luck. And I had to rely on a few other people there to help me, figure out what I was doing. I never felt comfortable doing it because I always thought some situation is going to come up, whether it's a tornado or some terrible storm or something, that I don't know how to explain or cover correctly. And fortunately, that never happened. And of course, with my uncomfortable feelings about it, I ended up leaning on doing shtick as part of the thing. And Rob Peter once said, I never felt cheated by your weathercast. And Harry Wolfman's wife said, yes, I was her favorite, which I'm sure made Harry very happy.
So I don't know if there's more questions, but I certainly have a lot more questions. I noticed last week was Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, correct?
Yes,
And I'm checking on this. I want Sydney Sweeney to do a biopic. Well, yeah, we all want Sydney Sweeney, but there's more to this. Yvette Vickers, the young woman that the guy that's cheating on the giant wife. I think Sydney Sweeney should do kind of the way Gretchen Mol did the Betty Page movie years ago. And I'm like, this is like a no-brainer.
Correction, Allison Hayes was the 50.
Well, she's the giant.
Yeah. But Yvette Vickers was the little temptress woman.
Right, she's the tart that the husband isn't he cheating on the giant woman with.
As a matter of fact, he was.
There you go. Yes.
So which role do you want Sydney Sweeney to do?
To do Yvette Vickers.
Okay.
Because she's kind of like Betty Page. She was a pinup girl.
Certainly, yeah.
But also, I saw her in one of the beach movies, Frankie and Annette, and she has no lines, but she's just one of the hip kids watching Dick Dale, or little Stevie Wonder or whatever.
She was a hip kid because she had nice hips. That was, why not?
Come on, that's what we expect. Come on.
We have questions.
We've got a
Yes, excellent. There we go. You're doing a good job, sir.
Thank you.
Miss.
Hello. I was just wondering, so I grew up with you and I think you're great. Thank you so much.
No.
You made my childhood wonderful. I was wondering if there were any movies that have come out more recently that if you wanted to cover and make fun of, you would.
The problem with most of the movies that have come out now is, MeTV, Memorable Entertainment Television, our bosses really want it to be family entertainment. And some of these movies, once we did the editing, it'd be 5 minutes long.
Sure.
And as much as I appreciate a lot of them, it would be very rough to get them. Also, the monetary factor. A lot of more modern movies, you really have, to be like an NBC network to purchase. So it's a lot tougher. So I guess if I'm around for another 30 years, I'll be able to run some of them.
Which are some, because again, a lot of these movies, the drive-in era stuff, they were fly-by-night studios.
Sure, yeah.
But have they all just kind of in an umbrella way fallen by like one distributor that has a ton? I mean, I know Corman was likely its own thing. I know Lloyd Kaufman is his own drama and everything. But like Deadly Mantis or 50-Foot Woman, is there?
Well, actually, a lot of them have been absorbed by the main networks. Deadly Mantis is under the Universal umbrella.
Sure.
They've got a lot of stuff.
Sure.
And there's other distributors that have kind of inherited them from those smaller companies. So, that's how we get a lot of the stuff. We have maybe 5 different distributors who make movies available to us. And what happens is they send us a list of what they have. We ask for movies, and we can't always get them because a lot of them are under exclusive contract elsewhere or not available during the period of time when we want to run them. So we have to fight for every movie we get.
Yep.
And when people ask about some of the movies, it's like, how come you never show? And I have to explain it to them, and I can't take too much time to explain the entire way the business works to everybody. But I try to, at least give them an idea of why we can't always get them.
I was blown away when we were talking last year. Michael Landon, I was a teenage werewolf. You think it's a no-brainer. But, right? Tell the story why that's hard to get.
I was a teenage Frankenstein. I was a teenage werewolf. Several other movies, there's maybe 5 of them all together, that are owned by the widow of one of the producers. And she has the rights to them. And she will not let anybody run them because she didn't like what Mystery Science Theater did with some of her husband's movies.
Isn't that crazy?
And we've actually approached her and said, watch our show, you'll see how we handle things. And, we think that we would treat them with respect and, still have fun with them, but treat them with respect, nothing. So I'm still hopeful that sometime we will get them.
Yeah, Jesus. And I told you, Gary Conway, who was Teenage Frankenstein, they kind of made a sequel called How to Make a Monster.
Yes.
And I don't know if that one is available.
No, we did run that one.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well,
And of course, he was still in it as the Frankenstein.
it's the same makeup. It's
It's
the
like
same mask.
no Michael Landon. They had some
Seven.
sense at that point.
Yeah, these things happen. Any other jokes?
Sven, your comedy is spectacular, but... Uh-oh.
If you want me to take the mic back, let me know.
No, it's okay. What brings us to your show every Saturday night is your encyclopedic knowledge of movies. Hosting movies is so special. Thank you for all of the knowledge that you've been giving us for 45 years.
Thanks. That's good. I have to say, I am definitely not an expert, and for every movie, most of the time I have to do research in order to come up with the stuff. And I still, you can work from the internet, but I have so many movie reference books at home that I go into to find information from. But, the whole reason I do that is because when I watch movies, I'll see some actor and think, I know who he is, but I don't know where I know him from. So I try to help connect people to that kind of thing.
It's like Perry White is in a million of those movies. And I forget the actor's name.
Johnny Young.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
Say, that's what I'm saying. No, I get it, man. I'm so with you on that. Absolutely. Sir.
So my question is this, I've asked you this many times in the last couple decades. When can we get a host for the Stooges that come on before Svengoolie? Because you, sir, you gave us so much great knowledge about that group of just joy that we got from the Three Stooges.
Thank you. I'm the way that I think I got hired at WCIU was because my boss, Neil Saban, when he talked to me the first time, we both really bonded on the Three Stooges. And we both knew a lot about it. And doing Stoogepalooza was a lot of fun. We had so many fans of that. Unfortunately, the Stooge Heirs and their company, Comedy 3, will not allow anything being done like that. Because they said, we own their likenesses, and they went into a whole bunch of things. So actually, we could not do the show the way that we did back then. Yeah.
And I wondered if maybe some of their movies, like Stooges in Orbit or something, would be something you could play with.
Well, a couple of them were owned by Columbia, and we did run, I don't know, Have Rocket Will Travel.
That's the first one. Yeah. The first one with Curly Joe.
Yeah. And I'm not the biggest fan of Curly Joe Duranga.
All right, who's worse? And again, we love the Stooges, but who's worse, Joe Dorita or Joe Besser?
Joe.
Most annoying, Joe Besser.
Thank you.
Yes.
I mean, it's so hard. Get crazy.
I mean, he could be funny. He worked with Alan Costello,
Yes.
being like a little kid, and that worked. But he didn't really mesh with the Stooges, and I'm pretty sure I saw an interview where he said that the Stooges did not make him laugh.
I interviewed him in high school. He was not a nice man. Yeah. Okay, putting him on
There he was working with these guys, and the fact that their comedy did not make him laugh, and why was he even there? They surely could have gotten somebody else.
Yeah.
But I guess under contract to Columbia.
Right, exactly. Yeah. No, it's, and of course, I've always made, whenever Rich is on the show, we talk about fake chef, Joe Parma. Do you guys know the story of Joe Parma? Fake chef? Only a couple of you. Tell people about Joe Parma.
Chef tragically died coming home from some fights.
Boxing.
A boxing match. And I used to do a bit about the death of Shem. Did I ever do this?
Do it. I don't know.
Shem is coming home with Mo from the fights. No, the way I told the story is he's going to the fights, okay? So they're right along and hey Mo, I don't feel so good. Shut up, you're gonna ruin the fights for us. I'm telling you something's wrong. And he drops dead. It's terrible.
Right?
guys at Columbia said, no way, that's not gonna work, we have to have a third stooge. And while they were trying to figure that out, they made 4 shorts in which there's a fake Shem. And it's usually played by Joe Palma, as mentioned. Usually they shoot him from the back. There's a couple times where he does an eep, beep, beep, and also delivers a line, and you can tell right away, that's not Shem.
Absolutely.
And they did lift lines a couple times from some of the movies, and, you know, kind of dub them in for certain things. But it was, you know, just so disconcerting, yeah. And then after that was when Joe Besser came in. So I don't know which was worse.
I hear you, man. Absolutely. Yeah, that's why at least to read it for little kids, you know, was okay. But I'm with you. Sir.
Hey, so I met you in 1981
Wow.
at Northwestern when you host the 24-hour-ish, I think it was about 22, B-Movie Festival, which cost $3.
$3.
I wanted to thank you so much for, I still think fondly of that. I like being introduced to like Billy the Kid versus Dracula. I'm like, you can't top that. So I just thank you for that. And also you haven't aged a day.
Overly kind, but I think that's one of the nice parts of the job is getting people familiar with movies that maybe they were not familiar with. When we first started running the Universal stuff, a lot of that had not run in broadcast TV for over 20 years in some places. So it was like there were a lot of people, this is the first time they got to see them. And I was very happy to, you know, kind of help to fuel that appreciation of those great old movies.
That's excellent.
Hi, Sven.
Hi.
My name is Tim, and been a product of watching WFLT TV when you were on, and it was just fantastic. I just remember that you had one show where you had like a song that you sang that was about wouldn't you believe if you had 200 shows that we'd run out of things that we could do, and you kind of went down the line, and I was just wondering, do you have like a running total of how many shows you've done from the inception of WFLP all the way through now with MeTV, because we never hear about it, and I'm sure it's tremendous. And if
Honestly, I don't have a run on. You have to figure, go by 6.5 years every weekend, and there were not as many, rarely reruns back when we were doing that show. And I still can't understand how we kept up that pace. And now, you know, the number starting from 1995 on to here, I'm lousy at math, but what is it?
30 years.
I'm lousy at math too. I couldn't even guess. But somebody was once saying, you know, you probably done over 1,000 song parodies, and I'm like, well, maybe it's closer to that, I don't know. But yeah, I wish I could tell you, but there are people who have not published, but printed online all these lists of the movies, and sometimes they are not accurate, but it might give you a better idea. So if you find somebody who's put that online, you might be able to go through it and count. And when you do, let me know. So I can answer these questions with a little more intelligence.
I'm sure a lot of you know too that on YouTube you can find a lot of the old sketches and interviews going back to the FLB years, which is great. One of my favorite books, Mike Murphy, the old scorer host in AM 1000. He's like, I like when Sven does Sven Arts, and it's the Menards guy, and you would make the face like the Menards guy would do the goofy smile.
That was another one. The guy who owned Empire Carpets.
Sure. Oh yeah,
But that wasn't the guy that commercial.
Oh, no.
The guy who owned it. And he liked when we do stuff. We did an Empire commercial where I was dressed as the Empire Man too. And he really liked it. He thought it was great. And then we did a song one week where I was the Empire Man singing to 867-5309. And the one line was how you can get ripped off while putting rugs on the floor. And it wasn't meant to imply that Empire was ripping anybody off. But the guy actually called me, the president of the company, said, you know, I love your stuff, but I felt like maybe that was kind of insulting to us. And I told him, we'll never run it again. Now, Menards, yeah, that was a lot of fun. And that stuff we can't really run now because it's been long enough that he was doing those commercials. And secondly, I don't know if they were all over the country.
That's fair, I don't know, yeah.
So, yeah, we did that, and people loved that, and we had one sales guy who complained, you know, that's the reason why we can't get Menard's commercial. It didn't matter that perhaps he was lazy and not good at his job, but we kept doing it anyway.
Yes.
So you talked about using books as like a main reference for the show, for your facts. What are the ones that you use the most? What are your favorites?
Say that again, I couldn't hear it quite well.
What are your favorite books that you use for references?
Your movie reference.
Oh, wow. You know, titles are going to be tough to come by. There's I can't remember his name. It was a Donald Skell? Anybody?
David.
David, okay, yeah, that, I use his. I have great older ones that, you know, just have titles like, you know, Universal Horror, and, you know, they're just big reference books, and honest God, I can't remember the names of them. But I've had them forever, since, you know, I was a teenager, some of them.
Sure.
And they come in handy, because there's a lot of stuff in some of those that never shows up online. So I wish again, another unintelligent answer from me. I apologize for that.
You know, there was the Golden Turkey books as well.
Sure, yeah.
And there was a sci-fi book that was really great from the 80s that had a million low-budget sci-fi movies.
And there's one, Keep Watching the Skies. You familiar with that? That was a lot of sci-fi type stuff. And, you know, it's invaluable stuff. It's great.
When they have modern movies now that are horror parodies, can you make fun of a comedy? I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, you do Ghost of Mr. Chicken, of course.
Sure.
But any of the modern stuff that...
Yeah, oh yeah, it can be done. It's great.
Have you looked at any of, like, you know, because honestly, I know there's a lot of even like Z budget, like really micro budget horror being made these days.
Well, we actually were trying to get The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra. Don't applaud too much.
Two guys.
The people that had the rights to it said they had to demand to edit it and okay the material that we do.
Yeah, that's
Bye.
Exactly. Yeah.
It seemed like a real big ego thing, so we didn't go after that.
I also noticed that Mystery Science Theater, they would get a lot of stuff from this producer, Sandy Frank.
Oh yeah.
And then Time of the Apes was the Japanese Planet of the Apes knockoff, and a lot of backdoor pilots of 60s shows that never made it to series. There was that Glenn Corbett Stranded in Space.
Oh my God.
Where he's on the parallel. See, this is why I love talking. He's like, yeah, of course, yeah. It's like, this is like our 60 Minutes. Yes, all right, absolutely. What else? But no, and yeah, so I don't know, again, if from an umbrella standpoint, because also I would imagine once shows like Joe Bob and Mystery Science were doing, maybe the rights for those movies went up too.
Some of those movies are not even available anymore. There's a lot of the Japanese ones that we have not found a distributor that we will provide. And same with a lot of that other stuff. You know, people buy out companies and buy, you know, inventories of stuff so much that a lot of the stuff kind of gets lost, and some of the places literally just sit on it and they don't offer it. So that makes it even harder for us to get movies. It's much harder now to get movies than it was back when I started, because then you would have so many distributors coming beating down your door and say, here's a whole list of movies, a whole package of movies you can have. These days, we have to seek out the distributors and have them sometimes reluctantly give us the list of the films that they might give us. So it's a much tougher battle to get those movies.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Uh-oh, doppelganger.
Hi, longtime fan. What are some of your favorite horror movies?
Oh, it's so tough to say because I like different movies for different reasons. I like all those first original Universal movies. I like Bride of Frankenstein. I like The Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's always been one of my favorites. I thought that was such a perfect, you know, new kind of monster that didn't come from literature or from other sources. And I have to say, those are probably my real favorites. And yeah, I like Abbott and Costello, Frank.
Any modern like horror movies that you like?
I probably won't get the name right. What is the one where you're not supposed to make noise?
Oh, Quiet Place.
There you are. Pardon me. Yeah, Quiet Place. I think those are really good.
Yeah.
I really enjoy them. And there's some other ones, but my head is like Swiss cheese these days. I don't remember titles. I apologize for that.
It's a shame though, too, because some of them really are like violence porn, essentially, right? And and it's, I don't know, there was something about, especially the Hammer movies, the Universal movies.
Yeah.
They really have their own quality, and all the drive-in movies and stuff.
Sure. And the Hammer ones might have had a lot of cleavage, but a little bit of blood. But it wasn't something that we couldn't work around,
Sure.
or even leave it in.
I was going to say, do you clean them up sometimes?
Sometimes.
Because as they got in the 70s, they did get a little sexier.
Yeah, sometimes we do. I
Okay.
see what I think the audience will tolerate and what my bosses will tolerate, and we'll go with that.
Mentioning the creature, what do you think of Guillermo del Toro, The Shape of Water?
I liked it a lot. I thought it was a really good movie. I thought it worked well. Keep hearing rumors that Universal is going to make a new Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Oh, sure.
Oh, they've got the costume design and everything. And this has been going on for years and years, and it still has never happened. So in a way, I think that movie was closer to any sequel you'd ever seen.
Oh, yeah. But also they're stumbling, because, they've been, much like the Marvel movies, Universal's been trying to reignite their franchise of monsters. You had that Tom Cruise Mummy movie, and that's the thing. It's like, and even Van Helsing, which I appreciated the effort.
I did too. I liked it, but it still was uneven. And now you see that their park in Orlando, they're having a whole huge land that's based on the classic characters. And it's like, well then, how about backing it up by actually doing some worthwhile movies about these characters? It would be good. I mean, we've had a couple other Wolfmen.
Yes.
And some of those were okay.
Benicio del Toro.
But some of them, like that last one that came out, it was like, this isn't the Wolfman.
Well, and I know the estates of Karloff and Lugosi and others own the likeness, so it's kind of like the Stooges thing.
Sure, yes.
Because I would, if I had millions, I would remake a Frankenstein with the Jack Pierce look, or even, for Karloff, or even the Glenn Strange look, obviously, like in Abbott Costello and House of Frankenstein and stuff. But you may not be able to use that likeness anymore, even if it is Universal.
An interesting fact is that all the heirs of the Universal people and the heirs of the Stooges have the same lawyer, Bela Lugosi Jr.
Yeah.
And I was working with a friend of mine, he was doing some radio stuff, and say Beetlejuice 3 times and he's leaving.
You're just getting in line.
Okay. So say it again 3 times and he's still here. But it's like, we were doing a radio interview, and he talked to Bela Lugosi Jr., and the interview was so bad, he was just giving short, cursive answers like he didn't want to do it. That's why agree to do an interview if you don't want to do it?
Yeah.
So it ended up that never aired. And we almost did a fake interview with me as Bela Lugosi, talking about how his son got all these things wrong. And we actually had it recorded, but we ended up not airing it on the side of, not wanting to be sued.
Exactly. My God. Did you ever talk to Sarah Karloff? I know Gilbert used to have Sarah and Lugosi Jr., I think.
I have never had the chance to meet her. I would love to. But
Well, Castle's daughter. Forgive me for jumping on it. William Castle's daughter, I know, has been making the rounds too.
Yeah, we do have
Victoria Price?
Yes, thank you. See, you know that stuff. Victoria Price, who's always been so nice and happy to talk about her dad, and had some great stories about him. So it's always great when we run into her at one of these conventions, because she has so many good stories.
Yeah, she was in that the Pickwick one night. One night did a show, and they showed House of Wax or one of the Vincent Price movies. So yeah, I'm sorry. And yeah, we're okay. How much time? I can't even read it. 15. Thank you. Okay. So I'm sorry. I'll stop talking and let the Lord be blessed. But
Hi, my mom introduced me to your show, and but I really like Svengoolie, and my question is, do you voice one of the puppets on Svengoolie?
No, actually, I don't. That's done by the guy who works on Svengoolie in the morning show, and they did that whole series of shows, and it had a lot of fans. But I don't know if it's the workload or whatever with them doing the daily cartoon show, but they haven't really come back and done more yet. But I know we do occasionally run marathons, especially around October, of some of the old shows. But yeah, it was fun stuff. And, you know, I always wondered what I'd look like as a fish. Not like Don Knotts when he was incredible. But yeah, I mean, I hope we get to see him again.
Yes.
Cool. Good question.
Come on up, this one. There you go. Step up, kids.
Hi. I started watching the show when I was a kid, and one of the things I remember the most was that you were one of the first hosts to introduce 3D imaging.
Oh, yes.
The Night of the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I really wanted those 3D glasses and all that. My question is, when do you think you could do that again, if you haven't already?
We actually have talked about doing it. We were actually going to try to do a couple movies in the past. The problem now is, since we're national, getting the distribution for the glasses. They tried a couple of different ideas, including, you know, possibly working with a company that sold pizzas that would be able to put them on there. But nothing had the reach enough that we'd be able to make sure everybody who wanted the glasses would get them. If we can figure that out, I'm sure we will do it again. And I know that everybody says that the movie we showed was Creature from the Black Lagoon. Actually, it was the first sequel, Revenge of the Creature.
And now is that the one with Clint Eastwood as the lab guy? Because he's a
Yes,
bit hard.
I believe it is, yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Awesome. And I wonder with 3D with HD, is that better or worse in terms of?
Well, there was another kind that they did that you could. No, I better not do it. But that's it. The show is really, and as the demographics have proven, for all ages. We get, you know, little kids watching. We get senior citizens and everybody in between. And when I do these signings here, you see the variety of ages that people are watching. So I try to put something for everybody without, you know, watering it down too much for one group or the other. And so I, you know, 50-foot woman, yeah, there were things I did not say. No, I will not elaborate on that.
It's a Groucho Marx level of, you know, style.
Yeah, and that's kind of, Groucho Marx was one of my idols. And I learned so much from watching his movies and watching him do You Bet Your Life. And that's what I wanted to be, a guy who could, you know, do those quick comebacks like that. And I still try to do that.
If I may ask one more verification, is there a holy grail of movies that you want?
There are several. For a while, it was the one with the brains that were invisible, and then it showed Being Without a Face.
Oh, sure.
And we eventually got that, which I was thrilled by. But I'd still like to get War of the Worlds, Time Machine, some of that stuff, because I would love to have those.
Absolutely. No, those would be amazing. What can you tease coming up as we're closing?
Oh, what can I tease coming up as we're closing? One of the holy grails we have, Mysterious Island.
Oh, I love it. We still have Fraser Thomas, but and now if you're ready, let us know.
I also like the fact that Fraser Thomas, you know, much like you're talking about adapting it, there were scenes that he would cut out of movies because he thought they were too scary. And the one he did that I still don't understand is Forbidden Planet, when you could actually see the monster, the id monster coming through the
animation that Disney made. Yeah.
He cut that because he thought it would be too frightening.
That's too frightening.
So yeah, but yeah, Mysterious Island is coming up.
Cool.
We've got some pretty cool stuff in the fall. People always ask about Young Frankenstein, and it's kind of a possibility. Maybe not as well known as Battle of Wanji. It's a Ray Harryhausen.
Oh, cool.
Oh, very cool. Giant dinosaur in the desert. And maybe something that had David Hedison, where he ended up being very small. Don't say that. And a few more. are too. So I'm looking forward to running this stuff. It's, stuff that, again, a lot of it, talk about holy grails, they were ones that we tried to get for years and years and could not, and finally some of them have come through. And we're going to keep trying to get some of the holy grail stuff. I'm crossing my fingers that someday we will have them.
It's probably too late for Mysterious Island, but I would love for you to be in a easy chair like Frasier. And the heartwarming story of people from a prison. They find themselves in this strange time. And you gotta do your Frasier, man. Do you ever like Frasier? Because that's another thing when Rich comes on the podcast. I'm all about the old, like you mentioned Howard Miller, which, my God, that's my childhood. But yeah, some of these great old Chicago booth announcers and TV people that sadly are no longer with us. He did an amazing interview, and it's online, with Bill Jackson, BJ and Dirty Dragon.
Oh yeah.
I mean, who else should you interview him other than Rich? So yeah.
Yeah, he was one of my idols. I did meet Frasier very briefly. We were doing, I think, an Easter Seals telethon.
Oh wow.
And we're in the middle of the night or something. So he was certainly getting tired, I think, and we just spoke real briefly. We had Bob Bell there as Bozo.
Awesome.
And Roy Brown as Cookie.
Awesome.
So I got to talk to those guys, which I was, pretty thrilled with having, grown up with these guys myself. And yeah, I always loved seeing the old radio guys. Mike Rapchak, do you know who he is?
No.
He did midnight radio on WGN, and he was a booth announcer at WGN.
Okay.
And I got to meet him.
Carl Grayson, perhaps?
I never met Carl.
Okay, the greatest deep voice in Chicago.
Yes, he was awfully amazing. I used to love, eventually later in his career, when he'd do the late news.
Night
Beat. And you could tell he wasn't quite with it,
It was late.
It was, but it was funny to watch. And these guys, that said, all those old guys from old school, they knew how to play so many parts. And that's why you didn't have a guy who was a weatherman who was also the kids' host and that sort of thing. And, I've kind of tried to have some of that old school in what I do. And, those are the guys I learned from.
Taking nothing away from Joe Bob Briggs and Elvira and that, this tradition, we are really lucky. And I know you guys know because you filled the room. But we're so lucky. And that's kind of absolutely. So here's the thing over here. Thank you very much.
Again, I always like to say, the reason I'm still doing this is you. Because without your support and, being interested enough to keep us on the air, I doubt that I'd have a job. So I owe you something. Not monetary. I really appreciate your devotion and your loyalty. Thank you very much.